She has brought millions of eyes, maybe billions, onto the WNBA, and Sophie Cunningham wants the world to understand the scale of what's happening. Caitlin Clark isn't just another rookie. She isn't just another face in the crowd. She's a phenomenon that transcends the game itself. Sophie compared Clark's impact to Kobe Bryant, to Diana Taurasi, to Sue Bird, but with one key difference. Clark's spotlight burns brighter because the media landscape has never been this powerful. And yet, despite everything she's given to the game, the league that should protect her has instead left her to fend for herself. The stakes couldn't be higher. Cunningham doesn't mince words. Without Caitlin Clark, the WNBA will be drifting toward irrelevance, a league struggling for attention in a crowded sports world. Instead, she single-handedly pulled it into the mainstream conversation. But instead of gratitude, Clark has been met with jealousy, targeting, and outright disrespect. Cunningham's voice cuts through the noise. Give the girls their flowers. She insists it's time to acknowledge reality. Clark didn't just elevate herself, she elevated everyone. Yet the system designed to protect her seems more determined to tear her down. Cunningham has faced criticism herself, accused of clout chasing, or using Clark's name to boost her own profile. But her response is fierce and unapologetic. She doesn't need clout. She doesn't need gimmicks. Sophie Cunningham is telling the truth, even when others are too scared to speak. I might be blonde, but I'm not dumb, she quipped, dismissing the haters. She's not here for narratives or petty rivalries. She's here to set the record straight. Caitlin Clark is the reason this league has a future, and denying that truth only exposes the insecurity of others. What makes Sophie's stand so compelling is her history. She was defending Caitlin Clark long before it was convenient, long before the numbers were undeniable. While other veterans were quietly or not so quietly plotting to humble Clark, Cunningham saw the bigger picture. She wasn't threatened. She wasn't jealous. She saw the opportunity. And unlike so many of her peers, she chose honesty over ego. She embraced Clark not as a rival, but as a catalyst. Sophie knew early on what the rest of the world now sees. Caitlin Clark isn't just a star. She's a star. Imagine the courage it takes to speak up when your own teammates are plotting against the very player you're praising. Back in Phoenix, Sophie heard the locker room chatter. She heard the schemes to show Clark what the W really is. Instead of joining the chorus, she broke away from it. She chose a harder path, aligning herself with the most targeted athlete in the league. That wasn't strategy. That was integrity. Sophie Cunningham staked her reputation on Caitlin Clark before it was popular, before it was safe, and now her words echo louder than ever. Cunningham described Clark as a gem, a young player carrying immense pressure on her shoulders, handling it all with remarkable poise. During All-Star Weekend, Sophie bantered with Caitlin, seeing firsthand the warmth behind the hype. What struck Sophie wasn't arrogance, but humility. She saw a player balancing overwhelming expectations with grace, a rarity in sports at any level. And Sophie's conclusion was simple. Clark is different, not just in her shooting or her vision, but in her ability to remain grounded in chaos. For Sophie, Clark represents the very best of what women's basketball can offer. Meanwhile, the league and its players didn't share Sophie's vision. While fans voted Clark as the number one guard, earning her over 1.2 million votes, her own peers ranked her ninth. The message was clear. Resentment runs deep in the WNBA. Analysts like Dick Vitale called it what it was: jealousy, plain and simple. But Sophie didn't need an analyst to tell her that. She had been calling out the bitterness long before it became obvious. Sophie understood the danger of envy in a league that desperately needs unity. She saw jealousy not as harmless pettiness, but as poison. And Sophie wasn't afraid to call out the referees either. In a league where fines are used to silence players, Cunningham spoke anyway. While others stayed quiet, worried about their paychecks, Sophie dared to challenge officiating and the system's failure to protect its brightest star. She knew fines would come, but she had the resources and the backbone to face them head-on. "Here's payment," she'd say when the league came knocking. Sophie refused to be muzzled. She understood that silence was complicity, and she refused to let Clark be targeted without someone in her corner. What separates Cunningham from so many others is her business sense. She knows that when Clark draws 2.7 million viewers, the most in 25 years, you don't undermine that, you build on it. This isn't just basketball, it's survival for the league itself. Sophie knows the numbers don't lie. She knows the growth, the ratings, the sponsorships all stem from one player. Instead of tearing her down, the WNBA should be rallying around her. Cunningham isn't just defending Clark on the court. She's defending the business model that could finally give women's basketball the respect it deserves. That's why the Indiana Fever brought Sophie in, not just as a shooter, not just as a veteran, but as Clark's protector. The comparison was made to Charles Oakley, the enforcer who stood guard over Michael Jordan. That's how valuable Clark has become, and that's how serious the Fever are about protecting her. Sophie, a black belt since childhood, embraces the role fully. She knows the WNBA isn't a vertical league. It's horizontal, physical, collisions are constant. And now with Caitlin Clark, the fire is bigger than ever. The Fever needed a shield. Sophie Cunningham became exactly that. Sophie has been transparent about what she's seen behind closed doors. She admitted on her podcast that during Clark's rookie year, entire teams, including her own Phoenix Mercury, plotted to target her. This wasn't rookie hazing. This wasn't tough love. This was coordinated hostility. And Sophie's words leave no room for spin. It was too much. When a veteran with her perspective says it's too much, you know the league has crossed a line. This isn't about competitiveness. This is about resentment consuming the game from within. It's about a league sabotaging the very gift it was handed. When Caitlin Clark was poked in the eye and shoved to the ground, the referees didn't protect her. Instead, they assessed Clark with a technical foul. That was the moment Sophie had seen enough. With less than a minute left, when J.C. Sheldon stole a ball and headed for a layup, Sophie grabbed her and dragged her to the floor. It wasn't about violence. It was about sending a message. Sophie was tired of watching her teammate get abused while the league looked the other way. For once, someone was willing to say, enough is enough. What happened next proved Sophie right. Within 24 hours, her social media exploded, climbing past 1.2 million followers. Fans weren't celebrating the foul itself. They were celebrating the principle behind it. Finally, someone had the courage to stand up for Caitlin Clark. The reaction wasn't about Sophie's fame. It was about vindication. The people knew what they'd been watching, and they were desperate for someone to step in. Sophie did, and the fans responded with overwhelming support. What the WNBA refused to do, Sophie accomplished in one act of defiance. She protected their star. The business implications of Sophie's actions were immediate. Sponsors and brands lined up. Partnerships with companies like Ring materialized within days. Cunningham's podcast took off, delivering her a platform that now rivals her WNBA salary. Integrity was rewarded. The market responded. While the league punished her, the fans and businesses embraced her. Sophie's message had struck a chord far beyond basketball. She showed that courage sells, that standing up for what's right resonates more than playing it safe, and that the WNBA's refusal to protect Clark is a betrayal not just of one player, but of its own future. Yet, Sophie never pretended it was about her. She made it clear she wasn't acting for fame or deals. She was acting for her teammate. She was acting because she couldn't stomach the hypocrisy any longer. I didn't do that for clickbait, she explained. I stand up for my teammates. But the fans knew better. They knew it was bigger than a single altercation. Sophie Cunningham became a symbol of resistance against a league that had lost its way. A league that rewarded jealousy over excellence, silence over truth, and sabotage over progress. And here lies the tragic irony. The WNBA has always claimed it wanted growth, exposure, respect. Caitlin Clark delivered it. She brought sold-out arenas, record ratings, surging merchandise sales. She gave the league its moment. But instead of embracing her, they tried to humble her. Instead of celebrating her, they tried to diminish her. Sophie's rage at this hypocrisy is palpable. It literally pisses me off, she admitted, that people deny Clark as the face of the league. For Sophie, the numbers are undeniable. The impact is measurable. The truth is obvious. And yet, the league denies it. The real question Sophie poses is devastating. Why would anyone tear down the very thing keeping the league alive? Why would players and executives who benefit directly from Clark's presence treat her like the enemy? Cunningham believes it's ego. She believes it's fear. But she also believes it's self-destruction. You're literally making money off her, she pointed out. The TV deals, the ticket sales, the sponsorships, they're all driven by Clark. And yet, Instead of gratitude, she gets contempt. Sophie sees the insanity clearly. Without Clark, there is no boom. There is no WNBA revival. Cunningham contrasted her approach with the league's. While others plotted to tear Clark down, Sophie offered support. She offered mentorship. She offered protection. She understood what Diana Taurasi once did for her, and she wanted to pass that on. "Anything she needs from me, I'm going to be here," she told reporters. That's not lip service. That's a commitment. Sophie isn't pretending Clark is perfect. She's acknowledging that Clark is transformative. And for Sophie, that's reason enough to fight. She knows when history looks back, it won't remember the jealous whispers. It'll remember the defenders of greatness. The evidence of Clark's impact is overwhelming. Fever games average over 1.1 million viewers. Other games? Barely 394,000. Teams move to larger arenas just to accommodate her crowds. Jerseys sell out in minutes. The financial windfall is unprecedented. And yet, the WNBA's culture continues to act as if Clark is a threat rather than a blessing. Sophie's frustration captures what fans feel. The league is sabotaging its own success. They should be protecting Clark. Instead, they're enabling her abuse. Cunningham knows this path leads only to disaster. If the league can't protect its brightest star, how can it survive? Sophie's emergence has forced a reckoning. Fans now see the contrast, a player who embraces Clark versus a league that rejects her. Cunningham's loyalty highlights the league's betrayal, and it's changed the conversation entirely. Suddenly, Sophie isn't just another player. She's a cultural figure, a lightning rod for debate about what the WNBA wants to be. Will it embrace growth, or cling to pettiness? Will it protect stars, or enable jealousy? Sophie has made her choice. She's standing with Clark, and fans are rallying behind her, creating a groundswell the league can no longer ignore. But Sophie's revelations are damning. She exposed Mercury's locker room, revealing coordinated hostility. She exposed the officiating bias, revealing systemic failure. And she exposed the league's culture, revealing a fatal flaw. For all its talk of progress, the WNBA is sabotaging itself. Instead of celebrating Clark, it's punishing her. Instead of building a future, it's clinging to the past. Sophie Cunningham's voice is dangerous to the league because it's honest. She tells the truth others won't. And that truth is simple. Caitlin Clark saved the WNBA, and the league doesn't even realize it. The parallels to NBA history are striking. Just as the Bulls brought in Charles Oakley to protect Michael Jordan, the Fever brought in Sophie Cunningham to protect Caitlin Clark. And the reason is the same. When a league has a generational talent, you don't leave them vulnerable. You build around them. You shield them. You elevate them. But the WNBA seems blind to this lesson. They've treated Clark not as salvation, but as a threat. And so, Sophie had to step in. She had to be the enforcer, the protector, the one voice demanding the league do its job. Even Sophie's comparisons show the respect Clark deserves. She compared Caitlin's basketball IQ to Taurasi's, calling both of them 10 plays ahead of everyone else. That's not casual praise. That's reverence. That's recognition of a mind operating on another level. And yet, while Sophie openly acknowledges Clark's brilliance, the league continues to downplay it. The disconnect couldn't be clearer. Sophie sees what others refuse to admit. Clark is a generational talent, and the failure to embrace that reality isn't just short-sighted, it's catastrophic. For Sophie, ignoring Clark's greatness isn't just wrong, it's unforgivable. The choice facing the WNBA is brutally simple. It can listen to Sophie Cunningham, embrace Caitlin Clark, and build a sustainable future. Or it can continue down its current path, enabling jealousy, tolerating abuse, and sabotaging its golden opportunity. Sophie's patience is gone. Her message is clear. The league must act, or it will destroy itself from within. Clark isn't a threat. She's the gift the league has been waiting for. Sophie Cunningham has made her choice. She's standing with greatness. The question now is whether the WNBA is smart enough or humble enough to do the same.